Chapter 21. The Name Beneath the World. The hunters did not celebrate. They never did. Inside a subterranean command chamber buried beneath layers of reinforced concrete and misdirection, the air was sterile and cold, humming with servers and quiet voices. Screens lined the walls, satellite feeds, biometric readouts, arcane spectrographs that most of the modern world would have dismissed as fiction. Agent Miriam Hale stood at the center of the room, hands clasped behind her back, staring at the central display. Subject: Mercer. Daniel. Classification: existential anomaly. Threat level: undefined. She exhaled slowly. Say it again, a voice demanded from the shadows. Hale turned slightly. Director Caldwell stepped forward. Gray-haired, sharp-eyed, a man who had outlived 3 administrations and more wars than he could legally acknowledge. Officer Daniel Mercer is not merely a hybrid, Hale said evenly. He is a convergence point. Caldwell frowned. Explain. He exhibits simultaneous resistance to vampiric compulsion, partial immunity to lycanthropic dominance hierarchies, and measurable influence over ambient supernatural fields, Hale replied. He does not destabilize systems. She paused. He reorganizes them. Murmurs rippled through the room. A younger analyst swallowed. Sir, when he projected that pressure tonight, our sensors spiked across the entire mountain range. It wasn't aggression. Hale nodded. It was authority. Caldwell's jaw tightened. Authority over what? Hale met his gaze. That's the problem. Silence fell. Caldwell turned back to the screen, eyes narrowing. If Mercer aligns with either faction. He won't, Hale said. Caldwell looked at her sharply. He's not choosing sides, Hale continued. He's becoming something else. Another analyst spoke hesitantly. Sir, ancient texts refer to this type of anomaly as... Don't, Caldwell snapped. The analyst fell silent. Caldwell straightened. Observation only. No engagement. If Mercer moves toward consolidation, wolf, vampire, or otherwise, we escalate to Containment Protocol Omega. Hale stiffened. Omega is eradication. Yes, Caldwell said flatly. And God help us if it comes to that. Hale looked back at the screen, Mercer's image frozen in moonlight, standing between monsters like a living fulcrum. I think, she said quietly, he's already beyond our ability to stop. Elena Vasquez stood alone in the Crimson Vault. The air was heavy with blood magic and age, the walls carved with sigils older than empires. At the center of the chamber lay the forbidden text, sealed for centuries, wrapped in chains etched with wards that drank light. She had sworn never to open it again. She broke the seal. The chains recoiled as if in pain. The book shuddered beneath her hands, then fell still. Elena opened it. The pages were not parchment but something else. Something that pulsed faintly, responding to her presence. She turned past familiar verses, past censored fragments, until she reached the final section. The part no queen had dared read aloud. Her breath caught. When the bridge awakens fully, the lie of origins shall collapse. Blood shall remember what history denied. The first Fong is not the end. He is the lock. The true devourer sleeps beneath crowns and myths, waiting for the world to forget his name. Elena's fingers trembled as she turned the page. When the name is spoken again, night will kneel or burn. Elena closed the book slowly, dread pooling in her chest. So that's it, she whispered. That's what we buried. She had told the world Lycaon was the great terror, the first king, the threat that nearly ended everything. But Lycaon had never been the apocalypse. He had been the barrier. Elena straightened, decision hardening in her eyes. Daniel Mercer needs to know, she said to the empty chamber. Before Lycaon tells him first. Daniel Mercer slept. Or rather, his body did. His mind sank. The dream took him instantly, violently, pulling him downward through layers of darkness until the world reshaped itself around him. He stood on a vast plain of black stone under a sky torn by red lightning. Towers lay shattered in the distance, Gothic spires broken like bones, rivers of blood cut through the land, steaming. This is not a memory, Mercer said, voice steady despite the nightmare. This is a warning. A shape emerged from the storm. Lycaon, but not the towering tyrant of the battlefield. This Lycaon was older, worn, scarred in ways no chains could make. His eyes were not glowing, they were tired. "You finally listen," Lycaon said. Mercer's jaw tightened. "You manipulated me." Lycaon barked a humorless laugh. "So did everyone else. You want to control the wolves," Mercer snapped. "I want to protect them," Lycaon shot back. "From extinction." He gestured outward. The plane shifted. Mercer saw cities burning. Vampires dragged into sunlight by human mobs. Werewolves slaughtered with silver and fire. Humans screaming as something vast and winged descended from the sky, blotting out the moon. "What is this?" Mercer demanded. "The future," Lycaon said quietly. "Without me," Mercer turned sharply. "You started the war." "No," Lycaon said. "I delayed it." The ground beneath them cracked, revealing something massive beneath the stone. Something moving. "Then tell me the truth," Mercer said. "All of it." Lycaon stepped closer. "You believe vampires and wolves have been at war since the beginning," he said. "You believe humans are caught in the middle." Lycaon shook his head. "That is the lie." The sky darkened. "There was a time," Lycaon continued, "before courts and pacts, before kings and queens, when something else ruled the night. The ground split open. A shape rose from the abyss, humanoid, immense, crowned in shadows. Red eyes burned like dying stars. Wings unfolded, blotting out the horizon. Mercer felt the wolf inside him recoil in primal terror. "Who is that?" Mercer whispered. Lycaon's voice dropped to a reverent, fearful hush. "Morveth Kell," he said, "the first devourer. The blood sovereign. The one who taught vampires how to feed, and taught wolves how to hunt." The figure turned, smiling with too many teeth. "And the name humans buried beneath legend," Lycaon finished. Mercer felt the word before he heard it. "Dracula." The name struck like thunder. "No," Mercer said. "That's a myth." Lycaon snarled. "That is survival." The vision shifted again. Mercer saw Morveth Kell standing above armies. Vampires kneeling, werewolves chained, humans screaming. He saw Morveth shaping bloodlines, forging monsters as tools. "He created vampires to rule cities," Lycaon said. "Werewolves to dominate the wilds. Humans to breed and fear." Mercer clenched his fists. "Then why didn't you destroy him?" Lycaon's eyes burned with ancient rage. "Because he cannot be killed, only sealed." The world shook as chains of blood and moonlight wrapped around Morveth Kell, dragging him into the abyss. "I was the lock," Lycaon said. "The one who held him down." Mercer's chest tightened. "And now," Lycaon met his gaze, "now I am weakened, and you have awakened." Mercer took a step back. "You want me to replace you?" Lycaon nodded once. "Or to stand with me?" "You let people die," Mercer said. "You ruled through fear." Lycaon's expression twisted. "Because fear works. Because love fractures. Because if Morveth Kell rises again, there will be no sides. Only extinction." The storm overhead intensified. "He is stirring," Lycaon said. "The hunters feel it. The vampires feel it. Elena feels it." Lycaon leaned in, voice low and urgent. "But they still believe I am the enemy." Mercer swallowed. "And you want me to believe you?" Lycaon straightened. "I want you to see the truth." The world around them began to collapse. "You are not the bridge between wolf and vampire," Lycaon said as everything fell into darkness. "You are the replacement lock." Mercer woke screaming. He sat bolt upright, breath tearing from his lungs, heart hammering so hard it hurt. Sweat soaked his clothes. The wolf inside him was silent, shaken. Outside, thunder rolled across the mountains. The air smelled like rain and blood. His phone vibrated violently on the nightstand. "Elena Vasquez." Mercer stared at it, then answered. "Elena," he said hoarsely. "I know." Her voice was tight. "Lycaon showed you." "Yes," Mercer said. "And he told me the name." Silence. Then Elena spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Dracula." Mercer closed his eyes. "He's not dead," Mercer said. "He's sealed." "And the seal is failing," Elena replied. Mercer looked toward the dark window, feeling the weight of the world press closer. "Then stop treating me like a weapon," he said, "and start telling me how to keep the devil buried." Far away, deep beneath stone and forgotten blood, something ancient stirred and smiled. The lock was weakening, and the world was running out of time. The hunters named it an existential anomaly. That was the phrase that echoed through sealed chambers and encrypted transmissions, whispered by men and women who had spent lifetimes convincing themselves they were the last defense between humanity and the dark. Daniel Mercer was no longer just a problem. He was a variable that broke their models. The hunter's verdict. Beneath an abandoned Cold War bunker carved into the granite spine of the Rockies, a council gathered around a steel table scarred by decades of classified wars. Screens glowed with footage, grainy bodycam recordings, thermal anomalies, bloodwork charts that refused to stabilize. Mercer appeared on every screen. "Subject exhibits dual-spectrum resonance," one analyst said, voice tight. "Lycanthropic markers and vampiric bonding residue." A woman at the head of the table, Director Halvorsen, folded her hands. Her eyes were sharp, tired, and utterly unromantic. "That shouldn't be possible," she said. "It wasn't," replied a gray-haired man with a hunter's sigil burned into his wrist. "Until now." Another voice cut in. "He's not turning feral. He's stabilizing events around him." "Meaning?" Halvorsen asked. The analyst hesitated. "Meaning encounters that should escalate don't. Packs disperse. Vampires retreat. Even casualties decrease after his involvement." Silence fell. Halvorsen leaned back slowly. "So the anomaly is acting as a suppressant. Or a lock," the gray-haired hunter said grimly. Halvorsen's jaw tightened. "Classify Mercer as an existential anomaly, tier Omega. Observe only. No termination attempts." Someone cursed softly. "Because if we're wrong," Halvorsen continued, "and he's holding something back." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. The forbidden prophecy. High above the city, beneath a cathedral of stone older than the concept of God, Elena Vasquez stood alone. The vault door sealed behind her with a sound like a tomb closing. She had sworn never to return here. The final archive was forbidden even to queens, especially to queens. It held truths that ended dynasties and drove immortals to madness. The last time Elena had stood in this chamber, Rome still burned. She approached the obsidian lectern at the center of the cavern. A book rested there, bound in something that was not leather. Blood recognized blood. The pages turned on their own. Elena's eyes moved rapidly, centuries of discipline barely containing the tremor in her hands. "When the lock walks in flesh, neither fang nor claw shall claim him. Born of man, marked by moon, bound by blood not his own. He is the hinge upon which the night turns." Elena swallowed. She read on. "The first king kneels. The last queen decides. And the circle before the crown must teach him the cost of balance." Elena closed the book slowly. "The witches," she whispered. She had hoped, foolishly, that this part was metaphor. It was not. The circle before the crown. Long before vampires built courts and werewolves crowned kings, there had been the circle. Not covens, not clans. Convergence. When humanity first learned to name fear, some learned to shape it instead. Witches were not born. They were claimed. Magic answered trauma, desperation, curiosity. It carved pathways through bloodlines, rewrote instincts, demanded payment. Warlocks came later. Where witches listened, warlocks took. They studied what witches felt. They bound what witches begged. They etched magic into bone and stone and will. And when vampires and werewolves rose into dominance, it was the circle that decided which secrets survived. The circle had no throne, only balance. They had opposed Dracula when even angels hesitated. They had bound Morveth Kell when gods turned away. And when the first werewolf king shattered the world with his howl, it was the circle that taught him restraint. They were the keepers of the seals, and they had been waiting. Lycaon's truth. Daniel Mercer dreamed in fragments. A firelit cavern, chains thicker than mountains, a crown sinking into ash. Lycaon's voice echoed, not commanding, not threatening. "You were never meant to be a king." Mercer stood barefoot in the dream, staring at the massive figure before him. "Then what am I?" Mercer demanded. Lycaon's red-gold eyes softened. "A lock does not rule the door," Lycaon said. "It ensures no one opens it without consequence." The dream shifted. Mercer saw witches standing in a circle, blood dripping into runes. He saw a man at their center. Not young, not old, skin carved with sigils that glowed like dying stars. "Who is that?" Mercer asked. Lycaon's voice lowered. "The Supreme Warlock." The Supreme Warlock revealed. His name was Aurelian Voss, older than the vampire courts, older than the first pack. Human, technically. Voss had once been a prodigy, a man who understood that magic was not a gift but a language. He had mastered it the way emperors mastered war. When witches feared the price of spells, Voss paid it. When seals required sacrifice, Voss endured it. His body was a map of binding scars, each one a promise kept. He did not rule the circle. He anchored it, and he had refused to train anyone in over 3 centuries. Until now. Mercer awakens. Daniel woke with a gasp, sweat soaking his sheets. The mark on his neck burned. Not painfully, but insistently, like a pulse demanding attention. He could feel the circle now. The hollow of thorns pulled at him like gravity. He stood, hands trembling, and realized something terrifying. He wasn't afraid. That scared him more than anything else. Elena and Rashad decide. Night fell again over the mountains. Elena and Rashad stood at opposite ends of the council chamber carved into stone, tension thick as storm air. "He's not ready," Rashad growled. "He'll never be ready," Elena snapped. "That's the point." Rashad slammed a fist into the table. "The circle destroys what it trains. They preserve what matters," Elena shot back. "And you know it." Silence stretched. Rashad exhaled slowly. "If Voss touches his mind." "He already has," Elena said quietly. "Through the seal." Rashad's shoulders sagged slightly. "So this is it," he murmured. "We hand him to the old god's accountant and hope he survives." Elena met his gaze. "No," she said. "We walk him to the door, and pray he walks back." The summoning. The hollow of thorns awakened. Candles flared without flame. Bones rattled. The standing stone split with a sound like thunder. Witches and warlocks gathered, forming the ancient circle. Daniel Mercer stepped forward, heart pounding but steady. Mara Vane inclined her head. "You've been expected." Mercer swallowed. "I keep hearing that." The air shifted. A presence settled over the hollow, heavy, absolute. A man stepped from the shadows. Tall, lean, eyes like etched silver. Skin marked with glowing sigils that moved subtly, like living script. Aurelian Voss regarded Mercer with open curiosity. "So," the Supreme Warlock said calmly, "the lock learns to speak." Mercer met his gaze, feeling something ancient assess him. Not as prey, not as royalty, but as structure. "What happens now?" Mercer asked. Voss's lips curved faintly. "Now," he said, "you learn what it means to hold the world closed." The standing stone flared, the circle sealed, and far beneath the earth, something ancient stirred, sensing that its greatest obstacle had finally found a teacher. Chapter 22. The Weight of the Lock. The mountain did not sleep. It breathed. Mist rolled low across the jagged ridges as dawn approached, curling around ancient stone and pine like a living thing. The wolves felt it first, the subtle wrongness in the air, the way the earth seemed to pulse beneath their paws. Vampires sensed it next, a disturbance in the blood that whispered of old power shifting its chains. And at the center of it all stood Daniel Mercer. He stood barefoot on cold stone at the edge of the high plateau, shirt discarded, scars faintly glowing beneath his skin like veins of molten gold. The seal was stirring inside him, not violently, not yet, but insistently, like a door being tested from the other side. He clenched his fists, breathing through the pressure. Every heartbeat echoed with memories that were not his. Chains, Screams. A crown sinking into blood-soaked soil. You're fighting it too hard. Rashad's voice came from behind him. The werewolf king approached slowly, his massive form outlined by the gray light of early morning. He no longer looked like a warrior preparing for battle. He looked like a ruler preparing for judgment. Mercer exhaled sharply. It doesn't feel like something I should let in. Rashad stopped a few feet away. That's because it isn't something that wants freedom. It wants continuity. Mercer turned. That's not comforting. Rashad huffed a quiet laugh. Kingship never is. Elena emerged from the mist moments later, crimson cloak trailing behind her, eyes sharp and tired. The vampire queen had not fed that night. Mercer could sense it now, the way her restraint pressed against centuries of instinct. We don't have much time, Elena said. Lycaon arrives at sunrise. Mercer stiffened. You said he wouldn't come near me again. I said he wouldn't force himself near you, Elena corrected. That was before we read the forbidden verses together. Rashad glanced at her. You're certain? Elena nodded. The prophecy was never about domination. It was about succession. Mercer frowned. You're talking like he's already won. No, Elena said softly. I'm talking like we finally understand the board. Lycaon arrived with the sun, not in chains, not in fury. He emerged from the treeline as the first rays of light crested the peaks, his massive form casting a long shadow across the stone. 20 feet tall, crowned in scars and ancient runes burned into flesh, the first werewolf king looked less like a monster and more like a monument to survival. The wolves dropped to one knee instinctively. Rashad did not. Elena did not. Mercer did not. Lycaon stopped several paces away, his red-gold eyes settling on Mercer. Not with hunger, not with command, but with recognition. You feel it now, Lycaon rumbled. The pull of the lock. Mercer swallowed. I feel something trying to rewrite me. Lycaon inclined his head. That is what responsibility feels like. Rashad stepped forward, his voice firm. Enough riddles. You want our alliance, say why. Lycaon's gaze shifted to him. Because Morvith Kel's seal is anchored to bloodlines that are collapsing. Vampires are thinning. Werewolves are fracturing. Humans are arming themselves with knowledge they were never meant to have. He looked back at Mercer. And because the seal is already choosing its next bearer. Elena's jaw tightened. You could have told us centuries ago. Lycaon's lips pulled back, not in a smile. You would have killed him. Elena didn't deny it. You still might, Lycaon added calmly. Mercer stepped between them without thinking. That ends now, Mercer said. The ground vibrated beneath his feet. Everyone froze. Rashad stared at him. Elena's eyes widened. Lycaon's brows lifted slightly. There it is. Mercer's pulse thundered in his ears. I didn't do that on purpose. No, Lycaon said. But you did it instinctively. The air around Mercer shimmered faintly, like heat rising off asphalt. Symbols, older than language, flickered briefly across his arms before fading. Elena took an involuntary step back. That was blood law, she whispered. Pre-court, pre-crown. Mercer looked at his hands. I didn't even know what I was saying. Lycaon approached slowly, deliberately. The seal responds to balance. When you speak with intent, the world listens. Rashad growled low. He's not ready. Lycaon stopped inches from Mercer. Neither was I. The two kings, past and present, locked eyes. Then Lycaon did something no one expected. He knelt. The impact cracked stone. The wolves gasped. Rashad stiffened in shock. Elena sucked in a sharp breath. Lycaon lowered his massive head. I, Lycaon of the First Fong, acknowledged the awakening of the lockbearer. Silence thundered. Mercer's voice came out hoarse. Get up. Lycaon did not move. I'm not your king, Mercer said. Lycaon looked up. Not yet. Elena stepped forward, her voice steady but edged with awe. If we accept this, if we align with you, you accept nothing blindly, Lycaon interrupted. You witness. He rose and turned toward the far edge of the plateau. The witches are waiting. The hollow of thorns lay hidden between realities. The path to it twisted unnaturally, folding distance in ways that made Mercer's head ache. Trees bent inward, their branches woven with charms and bones. Candles burned without wind. Symbols glowed faintly in the dirt, reacting to Mercer's presence like iron filings to a magnet. "They feel you," Elena said quietly as they walked. "Even before they see you." Mercer rubbed his temples. "Feels like walking through a migraine." Rashad snorted. "That means they're being polite." They entered the hollow together. The witches were already gathered. Men and women, young and old, human and something else entirely. Warlocks with eyes too sharp. Witches with hands stained permanently by spellfire. A circle formed around a standing stone etched with spiraling runes. At the center stood a woman with silver hair braided with feathers and bone. Mara Vane. "She's the High Conclave speaker," Elena murmured. "She hates vampires." Mara's gaze locked onto Mercer. "So," Mara said, her voice carrying without effort, "the lock walks." Mercer blinked. "That's unsettling." A ripple of dark amusement moved through the coven. Mara stepped forward. "You are earlier than expected." Elena bristled. "You knew." Mara's smile was thin. "We felt him months ago. The seal doesn't move quietly." Rashad crossed his arms. "Then why didn't you come to us?" "Because," Mara said, eyes never leaving Mercer. "We needed to know what he would become without interference." Mercer frowned. "And?" Mara studied him for a long moment, then nodded once. "Unbroken," she said. "That's rare." Lycaon stepped forward. "The conclave will stand with us." Mara turned sharply. "Do not presume." The standing stone pulsed suddenly. Mercer gasped as pain lanced through his chest. He dropped to one knee, clutching his heart as symbols blazed across his skin. Brighter this time, undeniable. The witches hissed in shock. Several stepped back. Mara's eyes widened. "He's sinking." Elena knelt beside Mercer. "Daniel, focus on my voice." I can hear something," Mercer panted. "Like chains grinding." Lycaon crouched beside him. "Do not fight it. Direct it." Mercer clenched his teeth. "How?" "Think of the door," Lycaon said. "Not opening. Not closing. Holding." Mercer's mind filled with images. Morvith Kell straining against the seal. Dracula's red eyes burning with hatred and hunger. Fear surged, then steadied. The pain eased. The runes dimmed. The hollow exhaled. Mara stared at Mercer with something dangerously close to reverence. "He just reinforced it," she whispered. "Without ritual." Rashad shook his head slowly. "That shouldn't be possible." Elena looked at Mercer, voice soft. "You're changing faster than we thought." Mercer pushed himself to his feet, shaking. "I don't feel stronger." Mara smiled grimly. "You're not." She gestured to the coven. "He's becoming necessary." A murmur swept through the witches. Mara turned back to Lycaon. "We will help." Lycaon inclined his head. "Because you believe me now?" Mara's gaze returned to Mercer. "Because if the seal breaks, magic itself burns." She stepped closer to Mercer. "And because Dracula remembers our names." Mercer swallowed. "So what happens now?" Elena straightened. "Now we stop pretending this is a shadow war." Rashad nodded. "Pacts will be summoned." Mara added, "The conclave will prepare binding rites." Lycaon's eyes burned with resolve. "And the lockbearer will be trained." Mercer looked around at them. Vampire Queen, Werewolf King, Ancient Ruler, and a circle of witches who smelled of storm and ash. "You're talking about me like I'm not here," Mercer said. Elena met his gaze. "Then say it, Daniel. Say what you want." Mercer took a breath. "I want the truth," he said. "All of it. No more myths. No more lies wrapped in crowns." A pause. Then Lycaon nodded slowly. "Then you will learn why Dracula fears the seal more than death." Thunder rolled overhead. Far below the mountain, something ancient shifted in its prison, and listened. Chapter 23. The Weight of What Holds. The hollow of thorns closed behind them, not with a sound, but with a decision. Daniel Mercer felt it the moment the boundary sealed, like pressure equalizing deep underwater. The air thickened, charged with magic old enough to remember when the world had fewer rules. The standing stones glowed faintly, their runes shifting as if alive, reacting to his presence the way iron reacts to a magnet. Aurelian Voss did not turn to look at him. The supreme warlock stood at the center of the circle, hands folded behind his back, posture relaxed in a way that spoke not of comfort, but certainty. His sigils pulsed slowly beneath his skin, faint lines of power tracing across his arms, neck, and temple like living scars. "Do you know why seals fail, Officer Mercer?" Voss asked calmly. Mercer swallowed. "Because someone breaks them." Voss smiled faintly. "No, because the ones holding them forget why they exist." The witches and warlocks around the circle remained silent, watching, some with curiosity, some with suspicion, a few with outright fear. Elena stood near the edge, arms crossed, crimson cloak drawn tight. Rashad loomed beside her, massive and immovable, eyes locked on Voss with open distrust. Mercer stepped forward despite himself. "Then tell me why I exist." That earned him Voss's full attention. The supreme warlock turned slowly, silver eyes piercing. When he looked at Mercer, it felt as though layers were being peeled away. Not painfully, but thoroughly. Voss was not reading his thoughts. He was reading his structure. "You exist," Voss said at last, "because balance failed once." The ground shuddered. Not violently, deliberately. Several witches stiffened. Voss gestured with 2 fingers, and the standing stone flared. Images poured into the air like smoke taking form. The first fracture. Mercer saw a world not his own. No cities, no steel. Only forests stretching endlessly beneath an alien sky. He saw vampires not as predators, but as scholars, keepers of memory when humanity still forgot itself every generation. He saw werewolves not as warriors, but as guardians, tied to the rhythms of land and season. And he saw witches at the center of it all. Not rulers, regulators. "The circle was never meant to dominate," Voss narrated. "We were meant to prevent collapse." The image shifted. Dracula, not the monster of myth, but a king of impossible charisma, standing before vampires and humans alike, offering protection in exchange for loyalty. His power radiated outward, bending reality subtly, dangerously. "Morvith Kell," Voss said softly. The name history erased. Mercer felt his chest tighten. "He was not always a tyrant," Voss continued. "He was a solution, one that worked too well." The vision darkened. Mercer saw werewolves being bound by blood, vampires crowned by fear, humans reduced to resources, magic strained, warped, screaming under the weight of singular rule. "So we sealed him," Voss said, "at a cost." The image changed again. Lycan, the first werewolf king, stood roaring against chains of light and shadow, blood pouring from ritual wounds as witches carved runes into his flesh. Not to imprison him, but to anchor something far worse. "He volunteered," Voss said, "because someone had to hold the door shut." Mercer staggered slightly. "That's what I'm becoming," he whispered. Voss nodded once. "Yes, the first lesson." The vision vanished. The hollow returned. "Training begins now," Voss said, as if discussing the weather. "You will learn restraint before power, understanding before instinct." Rashad growled. "You're going to hurt him." Voss met the werewolf king's gaze evenly. "He is already hurting." Mercer exhaled slowly. "What do you need me to do?" Voss studied him for a moment longer, then extended one hand. "Touch the stone." Mercer hesitated. Elena stepped closer. "Daniel, if it's too much." He shook his head. "If I don't do this, people die." That was enough. He placed his palm against the standing stone. Pain exploded. Not physical, existential. Mercer screamed as his mind was ripped open, memories colliding with visions not his own. He felt the seal inside him stretch, threads of power pulling taut, responding to the stone like 2 halves of the same mechanism. Voss's voice cut through the chaos. "Do not resist. Resistance causes rupture." Mercer gritted his teeth, forcing himself to breathe. What am I supposed to feel?" he gasped. "Wait," Voss replied, and then Mercer understood. He felt every supernatural life tied to the seal, every werewolf pack, every vampire court, even humanity, fragile, volatile, oblivious. All of them leaned on something they did not know existed. On him, he nearly collapsed. Rashad stepped forward instinctively, but Elena caught his arm. "No," she said quietly. "This is his burden." Mercer pulled his hand away, falling to one knee, gasping. Voss crouched beside him. Again, Mercer stared up at him in disbelief. "You're insane." Voss smiled faintly. "Yes, again." Dracula moves. Far away, deep beneath a ruined fortress sealed in blood and spellfire. Dracula opened his eyes. The chains binding him rattled, not because they were weakening, because something had touched them. "So," he murmured, voice echoing through the darkness. "The circle awakens its pet." A smile curved his lips. "Let us see how long the lock believes itself free." Mercer breaks and holds. The second attempt was worse. Mercer screamed until his throat bled. His body convulsed as sigils burned into his skin temporarily, mirroring Voss's scars before fading again. But this time he did not let go. He found the door inside himself, and he held it. The hollow shook violently. Witches cried out as wards flared. Warlocks dropped to one knee, stunned by the surge. Then stillness. Mercer collapsed unconscious. Rashad caught him before he hit the stone. Voss rose slowly, breathing heavier now, a rare crack in his composure. "He's learning faster than Lycaon did," Voss said quietly. Elena stared at Mercer, awe and fear warring in her eyes. "Is that good?" Voss did not answer immediately. Finally, he said, "It means the war will not wait for him to be ready." Aftermath. Mercer woke hours later in a chamber carved into the mountain itself. Candles flickered softly. The air smelled of herbs and stone. Elena sat nearby. "How bad?" Mercer croaked. She smiled weakly. "You didn't die." "Low bar," he muttered. Rashad appeared at the doorway. The Pax felt it. Mercer frowned. "Felt what?" "The seal tighten," Rashad said. "And something else." Mercer swallowed. "What?" Rashad's jaw tightened. "Hope." Silence fell. Voss entered last, his expression unreadable. "Rest while you can," the Supreme Warlock said. "Your next lesson will not be internal." Mercer frowned. "What does that mean?" Voss turned toward the exit. "It means," he said calmly, "we will teach you what happens when the lock fails." The mountain trembled faintly, as if in agreement. Far below, Dracula laughed. And somewhere between them all, destiny sharpened its edge. Chapter 23 extended the weight of what holds. The Hollow of Thorns did not release Daniel Mercer easily. Even after consciousness returned, the pressure lingered, like gravity had decided he was no longer allowed to be light. His lungs drew air, but every breath carried weight, significance, as though the world itself now expected something from him. He lay on a slab of smooth black stone carved into a resting dais, the surface warm beneath his back despite the mountain chill. Faint sigils glimmered overhead, rotating slowly in patterns his mind half understood and half feared understanding fully. Pain throbbed through him, not sharp, not acute, but deep, structural, the kind of ache that lived in bones and memory. "You're awake sooner than expected." Aurelian Voss stood at the foot of the dais, hands clasped behind his back, silver eyes reflecting the floating runes above. He looked unchanged by the exertion earlier, but Mercer could sense the lie in that. Voss's magic was controlled, not infinite. The Supreme Warlock paid his prices quietly. Mercer swallowed. His throat felt raw. "You enjoy this?" Voss's lips curved slightly. "No, but I respect it." "That's worse," Mercer muttered. Voss gestured, and the runes dimmed. The hollow seemed to breathe easier. "You held," Voss said. "Most fail their first contact. Some never wake again." Mercer turned his head slowly. Elena stood near the stone archway, arms folded tightly, crimson cloak discarded in favor of a simple black coat. Her eyes were fixed on him, not as a queen, not as a predator, but as something closer to guilt. Rashad stood beside her, silent, massive, arms crossed, jaw set. The Werewolf King looked as though he were standing guard over a battlefield casualty. "How long was I out?" Mercer asked. 6 hours, Elena said, "and another 12 arguing about whether we should pull you out of the hollow." Mercer exhaled. "You should've." Rashad rumbled. "No." Mercer glanced at him. "You're not even pretending that was a debate." Rashad shook his head once. "The Pax felt it when you touched the stone. Tightening, like the world drawing a breath it didn't know it was holding." Voss stepped closer. "The seal responded to your will, not your blood. That distinction matters." Mercer pushed himself upright slowly. The motion sent a ripple of heat across his chest, the mark on his neck flaring faintly beneath the skin. "It doesn't feel like will," Mercer said quietly. "It feels like responsibility without consent." Voss studied him for a long moment. "Yes," he said. "That is exactly what it is. The cost of knowledge." The hollow shifted subtly as Mercer swung his legs over the side of the dais. He stood unsteadily, boots scraping against stone etched with wards layered over centuries. "I need to know something," Mercer said. "No riddles, no prophecies." Voss nodded once. "Ask." "If I fail," Mercer said, meeting his gaze. "What happens?" Silence. "Not the dramatic kind, the honest kind." Voss spoke carefully. "If the seal fractures, Morvith Kell does not simply escape." Elena stiffened. "He returns," Voss continued, "restored, crowned, and every hierarchy, vampire, werewolf, human, collapses into something simpler." Rashad growled low. "Slavery." Voss inclined his head. "Order without choice." Mercer ran a hand through his hair. "And Lycaon?" Voss's expression shifted. Respect, regret, and something like mourning crossing his features. Lycaon was never the lock itself. He was the keystone. The seal was always meant to be transferable. Mercer's jaw tightened. "So I'm a replacement?" "No," Elena said sharply, stepping forward. "You're a correction." Mercer looked at her. Elena's voice softened. "Lycaon held the seal through dominance, through command. You're holding it through connection. That changes everything." Mercer laughed humorlessly. "Great. I'm an emotional load-bearing wall." Voss allowed himself a faint smile. "An astute assessment." The circle watches. Beyond the immediate chamber, the hollow pulsed with quiet activity. Witches whispered in low tones. Warlocks traced counter-runes into stone, reinforcing wards that had flared violently during Mercer's contact with the standing stone. Mara Vane stood among them, watching Mercer through the archway. Her sharp eyes missed nothing. "He's anchoring too fast," she murmured to a fellow witch. "Is that bad?" the younger woman asked. Mara's lips thinned. "It's dangerous." Rapid integration either means extraordinary compatibility or catastrophic failure. She turned as Aurelian Voss approached her. "You're concerned," Voss said. "I'm realistic," Mara replied. "You're training a man who still believes he has choices." Voss's gaze flicked briefly to Mercer. "He does." "For how long?" Mara asked. Voss did not answer. First controlled breach. Voss returned to Mercer, his posture shifting subtly. Teacher replacing observer. "You will not leave the hollow tonight," he said. "Your next lesson begins now." Mercer blinked. "I just woke up." "Yes," Voss agreed. "That's why you're still pliable." Rashad bristled. "You're pushing him too fast." Voss met his gaze evenly. "Morvith Kell is already testing the chains." As if summoned by the words, the hollow shuddered. Not violently, precisely. Mercer staggered as a wave of cold swept through him, his vision blurring. He felt it instantly. Pressure from the inside this time. Something vast and ancient brushing against the seal, curious. Dracula. The name burned through his mind unbidden. "I feel him," Mercer said through clenched teeth. Voss nodded. "Good. That means you're listening." Elena moved closer, her voice urgent. "What is he doing?" "He's pulling," Voss said. "Lightly, testing awareness." Mercer's breath came fast. "He knows about me." "Yes," Voss said. "And now you will learn to answer without opening." He gestured toward the center of the chamber. where a shallow ring of etched stone awaited. "Stand there." Mercer hesitated only a second before obeying. The moment he stepped into the ring, the runes ignited. Pain lanced through his skull as the seal inside him flexed. Images flooded his mind. Darkness, stone, blood-red eyes watching from behind chains etched with witchcraft and wolf blood runes. The Hollow of Thorns did not release Daniel Mercer easily. Even after consciousness returned, the pressure lingered, like gravity had decided he was no longer allowed to be light. His lungs drew air, but every breath carried weight, significance, as though the world itself now expected something from him. He lay on a slab of smooth black stone carved into a resting dais, the surface warm beneath his back despite the mountain chill. Faint sigils glimmered overhead, rotating slowly in patterns his mind half understood and half feared understanding fully. Pain throbbed through him, not sharp, not acute, but deep, structural, the kind of ache that lived in bones and memory. "You're awake sooner than expected." Aurelian Voss stood at the foot of the dais, hands clasped behind his back, silver eyes reflecting the floating runes above. He looked unchanged by the exertion earlier, but Mercer could sense the lie in that. Voss's magic was controlled, not infinite. The supreme warlock paid his prices quietly. Mercer swallowed. His throat felt raw. "You enjoy this?" Voss's lips curved slightly. "No, but I respect it." "That's worse," Mercer muttered. Voss gestured, and the runes dimmed. The hollow seemed to breathe easier. "You held," Voss said. "Most fail their first contact. Some never wake again." Mercer turned his head slowly. Elena stood near the stone archway, arms folded tightly, crimson cloak discarded in favor of a simple black coat. Her eyes were fixed on him, not as a queen, not as a predator, but as something closer to guilt. Rashad stood beside her, silent, massive, arms crossed, jaw set. The werewolf king looked as though he were standing guard over a battlefield casualty. "How long was I out?" Mercer asked. 6 hours, Elena said, "and another 12 arguing about whether we should pull you out of the hollow." Mercer exhaled. "You should've." Rashad rumbled. "No." Mercer glanced at him. "You're not even pretending that was a debate." Rashad shook his head once. "The Pax felt it when you touched the stone. Tightening, like the world drawing a breath it didn't know it was holding." Voss stepped closer. "The seal responded to your will, not your blood. That distinction matters." Mercer pushed himself upright slowly. The motion sent a ripple of heat across his chest, the mark on his neck flaring faintly beneath the skin. "It doesn't feel like will," Mercer said quietly. "It feels like responsibility without consent." Voss studied him for a long moment. "Yes," he said. "That is exactly what it is. The cost of knowledge." The hollow shifted subtly as Mercer swung his legs over the side of the dais. He stood unsteadily, boots scraping against stone etched with wards layered over centuries. "I need to know something," Mercer said. "No riddles, no prophecies." Voss nodded once. "Ask." "If I fail," Mercer said, meeting his gaze. "What happens?" Silence. "Not the dramatic kind, the honest kind." Voss spoke carefully. "If the seal fractures, Morvith Kell does not simply escape." Elena stiffened. "He returns," Voss continued, "restored, crowned, and every hierarchy, vampire, werewolf, human, collapses into something simpler." Rashad growled low. "Slavery." Voss inclined his head. "Order without choice." Mercer ran a hand through his hair. "And Lycaon?" Voss's expression shifted. Respect, regret, and something like mourning crossing his features. Lycaon was never the lock itself. He was the keystone. The seal was always meant to be transferable. Mercer's jaw tightened. "So I'm a replacement?" "No," Elena said sharply, stepping forward. "You're a correction." Mercer looked at her. Elena's voice softened. "Lycaon held the seal through dominance, through command. You're holding it through connection. That changes everything." Mercer laughed humorlessly. "Great, I'm an emotional load-bearing wall." Voss allowed himself a faint smile. "An astute assessment. The circle watches." Beyond the immediate chamber, The hollow pulsed with quiet activity. Witches whispered in low tones. Warlocks traced counter-runes into stone, reinforcing wards that had flared violently during Mercer's contact with the standing stone. Mara Vane stood among them, watching Mercer through the archway. Her sharp eyes missed nothing. "He's anchoring too fast," she murmured to a fellow witch. "Is that bad?" the younger woman asked. Mara's lips thinned. "It's dangerous." Rapid integration either means extraordinary compatibility or catastrophic failure. She turned as Aurelian Voss approached her. "You're concerned," Voss said. "I'm realistic," Mara replied. "You're training a man who still believes he has choices." Voss's gaze flicked briefly to Mercer. "He does." "For how long?" Mara asked. Voss did not answer. First controlled breach. Voss returned to Mercer, his posture shifting subtly. Teacher replacing observer. "You will not leave the hollow tonight," he said. "Your next lesson begins now." Mercer blinked. "I just woke up." "Yes," Voss agreed. "That's why you're still pliable." Rashad bristled. "You're pushing him too fast." Voss met his gaze evenly. "Morveth Kell is already testing the chains." As if summoned by the words, the hollow shuddered. Not violently, precisely. Mercer staggered as a wave of cold swept through him, his vision blurring. He felt it instantly. Pressure from the inside this time. Something vast and ancient brushing against the seal, curious. Dracula. The name burned through his mind unbidden. "I feel him," Mercer said through clenched teeth. Voss nodded. "Good. That means you're listening." Elena moved closer, her voice urgent. "What is he doing?" "He's pulling," Voss said. "Lightly, testing awareness." Mercer's breath came fast. "He knows about me." "Yes," Voss said. "And now you will learn to answer without opening." He gestured toward the center of the chamber, where a shallow ring of etched stone awaited. "Stand there." Mercer hesitated only a second before obeying. The moment he stepped into the ring, the runes ignited. Pain lanced through his skull as the seal inside him flexed. Images flooded his mind. Darkness, stone, blood-red eyes watching from behind chains etched with witchcraft and wolf blood runes. Chapter 24. Plans in Blood and Stone. The hunters called it confirmation. Deep beneath reinforced steel and encrypted stone, data streamed across curved monitors in the underground facility once designated Site Blackwood. A relic of Cold War paranoia repurposed for a darker war. Arcane sensors hummed beside satellite arrays. Sigils glowed faintly beneath glass floors etched with counterspells learned at terrible cost. Director Halvorsen stood motionless at the center of the command pit as the final analysis finished compiling. A single word flashed across the primary screen. Dracula verified. The room fell silent. No one cheered. No one breathed. After a moment, Agent Miriam Hale broke the stillness. Correlation confirmed across all datasets. The anomaly spike tied to Mercer's seal activation matches the same signature recorded in pre-collapse Transylvanian ruins. Blood resonance, void pressure, temporal distortion, all consistent with Morveth Kell. Halvorsen closed her eyes slowly. "So the fairy tales were wrong," she said. "He's not a vampire." "No," Hale replied grimly. "Vampires are his offspring." A murmur rippled through the chamber. A hunter with silver thread scars across his face leaned forward. "If he's sealed, then why now?" Hale's fingers danced across the console, bringing up a secondary display. Daniel Mercer, standing inside the Hollow of Thorns, runes flaring around him. "Because the lock has changed," she said. Lycaon was static. Mercer is adaptive. Halvorsen opened her eyes, gaze sharp. "Which means Dracula isn't just testing the seal." She looked at Mercer's image. "He's studying the man." A heavy silence followed. Finally, Halvorsen spoke the words no one wanted to hear. "Prepare Protocol Ashfall." Several heads snapped up. "That protocol hasn't been authorized since." Someone began. "Since the last time humanity almost lost the night," Halvorsen cut in. "We are not waiting for kings and queens and warlocks to decide our fate." Hale hesitated. Ashfall assumes total eradication risk. Yes, Halvorsen said, and so does Dracula. She turned to the room. We stop him before he escapes the seal. And if Mercer becomes compromised. She didn't finish. The hunters already understood. The plan of men. Ashfall was not elegant. It was not subtle. It was designed by humans who understood one thing above all else: destruction scales. The plan unfolded in layers. First, locate the seal's anchor points, which sites, blood altars, lay junctions holding Dracula's prison intact. Second, prepare counter-seal weapons, artifacts recovered from burned monasteries, relics baptized in silver and sanctified in fire, experimental technology infused with harvested magical residue. Third, isolate Daniel Mercer. He's the variable, Hale said to Halvorsen in a private briefing chamber. If Dracula influences him, intentionally or not, the seal collapses. And if Mercer refuses to cooperate? Halvorsen asked. Hale's jaw tightened. Then we contain him. Halvorsen nodded slowly. Prepare a strike team. Not to engage yet, just to be ready. Hale hesitated. With respect, Director, Mercer might be the only thing holding Dracula back. Halvorsen's gaze hardened. And if he fails, he becomes the doorway. Training begins. The hollow of thorns shifted as dawn approached. Daniel Mercer stood barefoot on cold stone, sweat dripping down his spine despite the chill. His shirt lay discarded nearby, already scorched in places where sigils had flared too close to the surface of his skin. Aurelian Voss circled him slowly, staff tapping softly against the ground. Again, the Supreme Warlock said. Mercer clenched his jaw and raised his hands. The air thickened instantly. Invisible pressure pressed against his chest as the seal inside him responded, threads of power tightening like cables under strain. His vision blurred, runes bleeding into one another. Focus, Voss instructed calmly. You're trying to block. You must shape. Mercer growled. You make it sound easy. It isn't, Voss replied, but it is survivable. Mercer inhaled deeply, forcing his panic down, imagining the seal not as chains, but as a valve. Something adjustable, something that responded to intention. The pressure eased just slightly. Voss nodded. Better. Without warning, the hollow screamed. A shockwave tore through the chamber as a surge of dark energy slammed into the perimeter wards. Witches cried out. Warlocks dropped to one knee as sigils flared violently. Rashad burst into the chamber, eyes blazing. That wasn't him. Elena appeared beside him, expression grim. Hunters. Voss's staff struck the stone once. Positions, he commanded. Mercer staggered as the seal inside him flared instinctively, reacting to the external threat. Pain lanced through his skull. I feel, Mercer gasped. Something's pulling at the edges. Voss moved instantly, placing a hand on Mercer's shoulder. Anchor to me. Mercer did, focusing on Voss's presence, solid, controlled, immovable. Outside the hollow, explosions echoed through the mountain. Hunters strike. The hunters did not breach the hollow directly. They were smarter than that. Instead, they targeted a secondary anchor site miles away, a forgotten standing circle deep in the forest, its wards ancient but critical. Explosives laced with anti-magic compounds detonated simultaneously with sigil disruptors firing like lightning. The seal shuddered. Mercer screamed as feedback tore through him, dropping him to his knees. They're destabilizing the outer lattice, Mara Vane shouted. If they collapse the anchors. The seal cascades, Voss finished grimly. Rashad snarled, shifting partially as claws slid free. I'll tear them apart. No, Elena said sharply. That's what they want. Voss's eyes locked on Mercer. This is not coincidence. Dracula is guiding them. Mercer gritted his teeth. He's using humans as leverage. Yes, Voss said. And now you will learn why the lock must act. Voss raised his staff, runes blazing. Daniel Mercer, he said formally, voice echoing with ritual authority. Do you accept temporary extension of seal authority beyond passive containment? Mercer's heart hammered. What does that mean? He demanded. It means, Elena said quietly, You will touch the world outside yourself. Mercer looked at the shaking hollow, at the witches bleeding from noses and ears, at Rashad bracing against an invisible tide. Do it, Mercer said, before more people die. Voss struck the stone. Power exploded outward. Mercer unleashed. Mercer felt the world expand. Suddenly, he was not confined to his body. His awareness surged outward along invisible threads. Ley lines, blood bonds, ancient scars in the earth. He felt the hunters, their fear, their certainty, their weapons humming with lethal intent. He felt Dracula too, distant, amused, watching the experiment unfold. Mercer focused, not on destruction, on denial. The pull on the seal reversed. Hunter devices overloaded, sigils shattering as feedback surged back into their systems. One team was thrown off their feet as their disruptor imploded in a flash of silver fire. Pull back! Hale shouted into her comm. Abort! Abort! But Mercer wasn't finished. He reached gently, carefully, along the threads connecting the hunter's tech to the anchor site and closed the path. The mountain went still. Silence fell like a held breath. Mercer collapsed. Voss caught him before he hit the stone. Aftermath. The hollow stabilized. Wards reset. Sigils dimmed. Mercer lay unconscious in Voss's arms, breath shallow but steady. Elena stared at him, awe and terror warring in her eyes. He just repelled a coordinated hunter strike. Rashad nodded slowly. Without killing them. Voss lowered Mercer carefully to the floor. His voice was quiet. He is no longer just holding the seal, he said. He is learning to enforce it. Far away, in the darkness beneath the earth, Dracula's laughter echoed softly against ancient chains. So, he murmured. The lock grows teeth. He smiled. Good. The war had entered a new phase, and everyone, human, vampire, werewolf, and witch, had just realized the same terrifying truth. Daniel Mercer was no longer a pawn. He was a battleground. The mountain did not forget the strike. Even after the hollow of thorns stabilized, the stone itself seemed unsettled. Microfractures humming with residual magic, lay currents flowing in unfamiliar patterns. The ancient wards, older than most civilizations, had held. But only just, and everyone who felt the tremor knew the truth. This had not been a warning. It had been reconnaissance. Aftershock in the hollow. Daniel Mercer drifted in and out of consciousness, suspended in a place that was neither dream nor waking. He felt pressure everywhere, like hands bracing him from collapsing inward. Voices echoed indistinctly, Elena's sharp and urgent, Rashad's low and thunderous, Voss's measured and unyielding. His pulse is stabilizing, Maravane said, her fingers glowing faintly as she traced sigils above Mercer's chest. But the seal is active. Too active. Voss stood at the foot of the stone platform, staff planted firmly against the floor, because he answered force with intent. That is not something the seal has experienced before. Elena folded her arms tightly. You mean he surprised it? Yes, Voss replied. And himself. Mercer's eyes fluttered open. Every gaze snapped to him instantly. Don't, Mercer rasped, sensing the concern before anyone spoke. Don't hover, Rashad snorted. You just shoved a mountain back into place. You'll tolerate hovering. Mercer managed a weak smirk. Fair. He tried to sit up. Pain flared, but it was different from before. Not tearing. Not overwhelming. More like muscle soreness after lifting something far too heavy. I can still feel them, Mercer said quietly. The hunters. Elena stiffened. What do you mean? They're not gone, Mercer continued. They pulled back, but they're repositioning. Watching. Voss inclined his head. Expected. Humans do not retreat unless they believe the next strike will be decisive. Mercer swallowed. They think I'm the problem. Elena met his gaze, expression softening. They always do. Hunters in retreat. Site Blackwood buzzed with activity. Medics dragged wounded hunters from containment corridors still glowing with residual seal feedback. Equipment lay ruined. Arcane disruptors reduced to slag, sigil plates cracked like glass. A faint ozone smell lingered in the air, mixed with blood and burned silver. Agent Miriam Hale stood near the operations pit, her arm bandaged, jaw clenched as technicians shouted status reports. "We lost the anchor," one analyst said. "Not destroyed, neutralized. It's like the lattice just shut us out." Halvorsen stared at the damaged feed, her expression grim. "That's not something a vampire or werewolf can do." Hale exhaled slowly. "Mercer did it." Halvorsen turned. "You sound impressed." "I'm terrified," Hale replied honestly. "He didn't lash out. He corrected us." Silence fell. "That means he understands the system," Halvorsen said slowly. "Which means Dracula understands it too." A hunter near the back muttered, "Then Ashfall won't work." Halvorsen's eyes hardened. Ashfall was never meant to kill Dracula. She looked at Mercer's image frozen mid-gesture during the counterstrike. It was meant to force the lock to choose. Hale's gaze snapped to her. "You're talking about provoking Mercer." "I'm talking about pressure," Halvorsen replied coldly. "Every structure breaks under enough of it." Mercer's realization. Back in the hollow, Mercer sat on the edge of the stone platform, boots dangling above the etched floor. He rubbed his temples, trying to process the afterimages still flickering behind his eyes. "I didn't mean to do that," he said quietly. "The pushback. It just happened." Voss studied him carefully. "You responded instinctively, but not blindly. That matters." Mercer shook his head. It felt like balancing plates. One wrong move and everything falls. Rashad crouched in front of him, massive form blocking out the runelight. "That's leadership." Mercer looked up sharply. "No. That's responsibility without authority." Rashad's lips pulled back slightly, not in a snarl, something closer to respect. "That's what kings are made of." Mercer scoffed. "I don't want to be a king." Voss interjected calmly. "Good. Kings fall. Structures endure." Elena leaned against the stone archway, arms crossed. "The hunters won't stop, and Dracula will exploit that." Mercer's gaze sharpened. "He already is." The mark on his neck pulsed faintly. "He enjoyed that," Mercer said. "The chaos, the confusion." Voss nodded. "Dracula thrives on polarization. He will let humans believe you are their greatest threat, until they force you into becoming it." Mercer stood abruptly. "Then train me harder." Rashad frowned. "You nearly tore yourself apart." Mercer met his gaze evenly. "Next time, I might not have a choice." Escalation. The Hollow's alarms flared again. But this time, not from the wards. Mara Vane rushed into the chamber, breathless. "We're detecting movement." Multiple hunter teams. They're spreading out, setting up perimeter observation posts. Elena's jaw tightened. "They're boxing us in." Voss tapped his staff once, eyes distant. "No, they're baiting." Mercer felt it then, a faint tug at the seal. Subtle, deliberate. "He's pushing again," Mercer said. "Dracula." Voss nodded grimly. "He wants you to overextend." Mercer closed his eyes, focusing inward. He felt the chains, the pressure. The ancient presence pressing gently but persistently from the other side. "You see now," Dracula's voice murmured faintly in his mind. "They will never trust what they cannot control." Mercer gritted his teeth. "Get out of my head." A soft laugh echoed through the seal. "I'm not inside," Dracula replied. "I'm merely knocking." Mercer opened his eyes, breathing hard. "He's testing boundaries again." Voss stepped closer. "And you are learning to answer without opening." Mercer swallowed. "How long until the hunters try something worse?" Voss's eyes darkened. "Soon. First blood." The first casualty came at dusk. A hunter patrol skirmished with a werewolf scout near the forest edge. Miscommunication escalating into violence. By the time Elena arrived, one hunter lay dead, throat torn out, blood soaking into pine needles. The werewolf responsible stood trembling, half-shifted, horror etched across his face. "I didn't mean," he started. Elena raised a hand, stopping him. Her expression was cold, ancient. "This is exactly what Dracula wants," she said. Rashad arrived moments later, eyes blazing. He took in the scene, then turned away sharply. "The war has started," he said. Mercer arrived last. The moment he saw the body, Something inside him tightened. The seal reacted not violently, but sharply. He dropped to one knee, clutching his chest. Elena rushed to his side. "Daniel, I feel it," Mercer gasped. "Every death pulls at it." Voss appeared behind them, voice grave. Because the seal was never meant to function during open war. Mercer looked up, eyes wide. "Then what happens if this escalates?" Voss did not answer immediately. Finally, he said, "Then the lock must decide what kind of world it is preserving." Dracula watches. Deep beneath the earth, chains rattled softly as ancient eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "They're bleeding already," Dracula murmured. "Good." He leaned back against the stone, fingers brushing runes that glowed faintly in response to Mercer's growing power. "Let them fight," he whispered. "Let the lock feel the cost." His smile widened. "Eventually, he will open the door, not for me, but to make it stop. A dangerous path forward." Night settled heavily over the Hollow of Thorns. Mercer stood alone near the standing stone, staring at the glowing runes etched into its surface. He reached out, then stopped himself. Voss appeared silently beside him. "You're learning restraint." Mercer nodded. "It's harder than power." Voss studied him. "The hunters will escalate. The vampires will maneuver. The packs will fracture." Mercer's jaw tightened. "And Dracula waits." "Yes," Voss said softly, "for you to decide which side breaks first." Mercer looked at the stone, then back at Voss. "Teach me how to hold longer," Mercer said, "because if I don't." The mountain trembled faintly, as if answering the unspoken thought. Voss placed a hand on Mercer's shoulder. "Then the world learns why the lock was forged." The hollow dimmed, and far beyond the mountain, human eyes watched through scopes and sensors, calculating angles and probabilities, while an ancient king smiled in the dark, pleased with how quickly the game was accelerating.